A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
I can't believe it's Friday, but am I happy to see it?
Yeah, I know.
So thank God it's Friday. Good morning and welcome. It was a very lovely looking sun this morning on my way to work. And I hope that...
Well, you on a Sunrise Daily, right?
Yes, it's also looking the same way at your end as well. Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, it's not looking misty and cloudy yet. It's November 3. Good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Yeah, so we know that, okay, well, we'll come to some of the other matters. But at this point in time, it appears as though the scenario all appears not to be well in Rivers now, because we know that they're trying to sort out all of the challenges that they're facing, and the PDP governors have been meeting. But just when it appeared as though they had said, okay, look, it's a family thing, we'll sort all of these things out so that the nation can focus on some other thing. And then this. So one wonders, what do you make of this comment by the FCT minister?
I'm not interested in the governance of Rivers State. I'm not interested. I'm here sitting as a governor. All the functions I have. But I'm interested in the political structure of Rivers State, which we have built for years. If anybody dares to begin to bring it down, the person will face the crisis in once in his life. Yes. I'm not interested in 25%, for the sake of 5 million issue. I mean, what's kind of petty. Impeachment is not rally. Impeachment is about law and what? Facts. It's not about threats. You blow the oil pipeline. When there was no impeachment, have you not been blowing down? Okay, are you the only one who can bring down oil pipeline? Is there anybody who has a monopoly?
No.
You are telling people that all you are interested in fomenting trouble and crime. Govern and govern well, but don't touch our political structure. Anybody who puts his hand in our structure, anything you see, you take. That's all. We can't have a political structure that made you. Then you want to destroy that structure. Who will allow it?
Well, very interesting. Well, I know I've heard political structure for a very, very long time. And I have also heard quite a number of times when people talk about the fact that you ride on a political structure or political machinery of one person or the other to get into office. However, if the political structure, well, it sounds to me like the foundation of a house or a bridge or whatever it is. If it is strong enough, really, how can it be easily destroyed or pulled down by anyone? On what is this or are these political structures built? And what is the essence of having a political structure as a former governor? Maybe I don't understand Maupe and Chamberlain. Maybe I'm just speaking as a naive person, because I'm trying to situate this whole conversation around political structure, or as perhaps some people have also said, some way of us sustaining relevance, which of course the FCT minister has also said. To have a political structure is to continue to be politically relevant. But the question on my mind is, as we have said here repeatedly, how does this help the people? Is this political structure built on a vision for the people of Rivers State? Is it so strong as to say, whatever the situation is, the people are the ones that are going to benefit from it? Because from this comment that I just heard now, I'm looking for where the people are relevant. how this whole thing factors in the people of Rivers State and how it brings development to the people. Well, the former governor is one person. A few other people might have their own political structures as well. And structures are built on structures. So for me, at the end of the day, and as we spoke about it, Malpa, you spoke about this repeatedly the first time we spoke about this, how does this affect the people? If the people themselves, and I'm not talking about political associates or political affiliates, I'm talking about the people of Rivers State for who we are holding these political structures. How does it help them? If the people themselves buy into it, I think they will be the ones to ensure the enforcement and the sustenance of those political structures. Maybe, I don't know, someone want to educate me? Maybe Chamberlain will educate me, but Mark, what do you think?
Most likely, Chamberlain.
We're all naive together in this case, please.
Most likely, Chamberlain. It'll be very easy to put it on you, man. Oh, well, what a Friday morning. What a topic to be discussing. Political structure. When you look at what happened in the 2023 elections and how, I don't want to say, there was plenty of ado about political structure. I remember the Labour Party being told that they didn't have a structure. And they said, look, the people are the structure. I do know that, structure is a big deal in political parties. Within political parties, it is the lifeblood of any political party. Who owns a structure? The person who owns a structure is the person who is the one who is the backbone of that political party. Now, you've heard the former governor say, look, I don't care what you do with governance, but don't touch the structure. So I think that it's only the governor and the minister now that can tell us precisely what it is that has happened. How is it that he's feeling threatened about, the structure that is about to be touched? What precisely has happened? What adjustments have been made that is in such a way that threatens? Is it the structure of the PDP now, or is it his own structure? I think that those two things need to be differentiated. But I think if there's anything that we've seen over the years, it is that if God's sons want to succeed and, don't want to be in any trouble, usually they let the godfathers be godfathers and manage the structure, and they just face their business. But sometimes some godsons rebel, and they form their own structure, and they get away with it. So what I do not know is whether this threat, does anybody any good. That's what I don't know. Because obviously, from what we can see, it is not over in Rivers State. It is not over. We heard the governor speak 2 days ago when the chief of defense staff visited him. And he said, well, it's not a problem. If there's a problem within families, father and a son, those were his words. So for anyone who will come after me and say, how can I be calling a grown man godson? How much older is the minister to the, what's the name? Those were his own words. He used that and said that father and the son can have a disagreement and that they would sort it out and all will be well. I mean, that was what he said, something to that effect. But when you hear the minister still blowing hot and saying, look, if you touch the structure, impeachment is what it is. It's law, it's fact. It's not a political rally. It means that all is still not settled in the state. And I think as much as possible, he's trying to get his own side of the narrative out there. There's been a lot of other, narratives. And I think that he's somewhat jolted. Because in the wake of what we've seen so far, Chimling, if we're to be very honest, there is usually plenty of sympathy for anyone who is perceived to be the underdog.
Yeah.
And if that is the situation, whatever it is that they say, whatever the narrative that comes out from the underdog is what people will run with. So I think he's also trying to put out his own side to say, look, this is not about governance. I mean, because there have been all manner of insinuations. Oh, the governor is not allowed to sign more than 5 million. Oh, the governor is not allowed to do this. And he's trying to say, no, that's not my business. That's not what I'm concerned about. But I think that for Nigerians, whatever you do within your political party should be, I mean, their own internal affair. The courts have ruled that much, that, you know, whatever happens. But when it begins to, and I said this yesterday, and I'll say it again today, whenever it begins to affect the instruments of state, then you have invited the state into it, and the state has a responsibility to act. For instance, the House of Assembly in Rivers State got burnt as a result of this structure or no structure, this internal wrangling. Somebody has to be held to account. The police in Rivers State, we found them divided. You know, it was seen that they had been deployed to political means, firing tear gas and water cannons at the governor. Somebody needs to be held to account. So far, so good. They've seen that 150 youths, allegedly, who went to the house of the Speaker of the Rivers State Assembly, who tried to pull down the gate, they've been taken to court. That's a good first step. I understand they've been granted bail because it's a bailable offense. That is a good first step. But there are other people who need to be bearing consequences. I mean, if you have a family feud, if I'm quarreling with my brother, I'm quarreling with my mother, whoever it is I'm quarreling with in my house, that's fine. The moment I get outside and start destroying public property, breaking down street lights, and then the police gets into it and I say it's internal family problems, we can sort it out, that cannot be treated as internal family problems anymore, Chamberlain. I have invited the state into it by my actions. And so those actions bear consequences because they have they've impinged or impugned the laws of the land. And as a result, there needs to be consequences. I think that between Godfather and Godson, they can have their problems, but as long as these problems do not affect the instruments of state, you know, then that's their problem. But the moment it starts to get there, then I believe that not only should there be consequences, but also, you know, the people of River State, and I think that even let's say political actors now need to be involved and be able to resolve this in such a way that, you know, governance is not disrupted in River State. Chamberlain.
You know, this underdog matter, that's why many people want Liverpool to win the Premier League. Okay, Arsenal too. But Tottenham is topping the Premier League, though. Okay, well, you know.
Oh dear, somebody is joking with his next one. You're joking with your bonus. Did you just say Liverpool?
The underdog now. It's the underdog principle, underdog concept.
I was not on this program when it happened, sir.
But you know, that's how this whole scenario playing out in Rivers State looks to a lot of people who may be watching from the outside. It just looks like a joke. Is this what we've elevated to prominence in the country? And sometimes I wonder, ask myself, look, are we actually progressing? Are we retrogressing in the scheme of things, you know? So many issues that we have to grapple with and ensure we address if we're to take our pride or place in the Committee of Nations and develop alongside, you know, because of we do have intellectual powerhouses, several people in this country who are competing with the best in the world. But this is what we see, what we're grappling with. And there's several questions. Security agencies, can they step up? Will they ever be? Because when you see what's happening in the rivers, you see what's happening in Imo, you see what Nigerians face on a regular basis, it always comes across as though us and them, as though security agencies exist for the elite class and not for the people who they're supposed to be guarding. That colonial mindset seems to be a thing. It seems to be dominant narrative in the character of policing in the country. And you wonder, can they step up? Will they ever step up? Elections are approaching, and you just wonder, so will it be to the highest bidder if it keeps playing out the way it is going on at the moment? And again, guys, talks. We're just elevating all of these things. Yes, they will resort to talks.
Yeah.
They will get, those guys will say they are relevant now because they will pay them.
Because you heard
They will give them
something.
money.
He said something very important, and we shouldn't miss it. And I think that, you know, that sort of statement coming from the minister should not be something that, you know, should be let lying low. He said nobody has a monopoly of violence. I think that is a very disturbing statement, because the state, Chamberlain, is supposed to have monopoly of violence. The state is supposed to have monopoly
now we see what individuals do.
But by state, I mean the government. I don't mean government of River State. I mean the government. If you say the government of the day, it could be the government of River State. It could be the government of, you know, or the federal government. Whoever it is that we decide should have monopoly of violence should be the one that has monopoly of violence.
Well, so now we've seen that the reverse is the case, because even the state empowers groups who, because they've got weapons or things like that, because they foment violence in some area, then government empowers them by giving them contracts to handle certain things, and then
that's how it happens.
They feel might is right.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, you now see people telling you, we'll blow up pipelines. I say, oh, well, you're not the only ones that can blow up pipelines.
So you've been blowing it up before this impeachment move. So it's not because of this you stop blowing. So it
is worrisome. So it is worrisome.
As a people, we need to decide what we actually want to do. Are we going to let these politicians keep pulling a wool over our eye, keep running things this way? And when Dr. Demi was speaking, I just wondered, you know, yes, trying to do a lot about ensuring that the right kind of people come up, you know, vie for those positions. And we know it's not going to drop on anybody's laps. You have to fight and work if we want things to happen. And that's why if opposition comes through and they're agitating, we have to ensure that the right things are done, whoever gets it. So it's a challenge that we've got in this country, and we need to decide if we really need to wrestle the reins of power across the platform, from local government, anywhere, in whatever circle you belong to. We need to be seen to step up, because, look, it will cost us something. But we need to decide if we want the best of us to run certain things or how. It's a task, yes. It is a huge task, but it's no task that you can't put your mind over and your body can't follow. But yes, fortunately, a lot now will be depending on the executive, the president, if he'll watch things deteriorate, if the IGP will watch things deteriorate. So all of those things. But the people must remember it's about them. They are the ones who elected officials. They are the ones who can speak up. If they say enough is enough, they can. After all, we'll have a right to hit the streets in peaceful protests. If they want us to remove the mic and type, you never know. You just never know.
Singular right to protest.
Yeah, it's a right. We all have that right. So, all right, let's run through some of the dailies now. New Telegraph, reps reject 5 billion naira presidential yacht, moves budget to student loan. Okay, where were they before? Didn't they see this initially? Okay, you may say better late than never, but you see what they talk about, eternal vigilance, the price of freedom. So there you go. Look at some of the riders now. The first of which says, raise security allocation by 70 billion naira. NSA's budget from 28 billion naira to 50 billion naira. Reduce service-wide votes by 100 billion naira. Well, guys, all of these billions, should we still ever be talking about banditry, pulling rings around government circles in different states with these huge billions that we seem to allocate year on year? After all, look, we have to ask these questions. Didn't we do the same thing for INEC? Look at all the billions that we spend, and we will spend more. But are we getting a value? You have to think as one thinks as, you know, be business-like. If not, you can't keep putting money in these agencies and people largely unsatisfied with the results. There have to be questions of certain people, and that's what they're demanding change. How do we appoint INEC chairman? How do we appoint resident electoral commissioners? Oh, by the way, so now that reps have rejected this, probably as a result of the outcry, the RECs are next. So if they heard that one, they should hear the complaint about the RECs. No excuse.
Don't mix it up, Chamberlain. That was House of Reps.
Are there members who are elected in the National Assembly?
It's not Senate.
How far away is reps from Senate?
There are two separate chambers.
If they could hear this...
Some...
Wait, but it's the budget. Whatever they are doing now, the Senate...
Did you hear the Senate spokesperson? Okay, no, you didn't.
No, I didn't.
Okay. You'll hear him shortly.
Okay, soon. Distinguished, we're waiting. Seek state of emergency on malaria, presidential yacht belongs to Navy presidency. Oh, look at this. Aborted rally. Imo thrown into blackout after attack on NLC president. Ajero to be flown abroad for medical care, ascribed to NLC. Uzodima, Ajero fails to separate NLC leadership, local politics. That gives you an inkling into what's going on there. So that's New Telegraph today.
Well, Leadership Friday is also focusing on that yacht, just in case you want more news on it. Amid public outcry, Presidency, Navy clarify 5 billion naira budget for yacht. The story is on page 7 of the paper. Tinubu doesn't need yacht to work, says aides. It's part of our fleet. Replacement for defunct one, that's according to the Navy. Lawmakers move allocation to student loan.
And you're telling me the presidency is spoken, reps, Senate will feign ignorance?
So now that the president has said that I don't need it to work, or the president's aide has said he doesn't need it to work, well, lawmakers have moved the allocation to student loan. But I think that even the Navy should be a little more, I mean, ask how many times does the president enter a yacht or enter this boat? You know, I will be asking for it at this time. You know,
been using it all this while, though.
I guess there'll be, you know, so sometimes, you know, it's what the state is supposed to have. If the state is supposed to have it, the state is supposed to have it. It's now a question of how often do you use it. If you need it, then you should have it.
Well, not all states have it. Why do we need to have it? We have to ask ourselves questions.
What do you mean all states?
We can't do, I mean, it's the countries. We can't do things because, you know, some other countries do it. Look, what is fit for purpose? What works for us?
Now that we're in this situation, we have to start asking those critical questions. I mean, could there be alternatives provided? Can we refurbish the old one, for instance? These are key questions because we're no longer in the place where we're using suspenders. We need to tighten the belt. That's what we've been told. Never mind.
If they are doing this because other countries are doing it, what about what happens to corrupt people in China? Do we leave out that part? Should we copy that one too? Yeah.
Big questions. But this is the story on the front page of Leadership. Presidency, Navy clarify 5 billion naira budget for yacht. And then at the bottom here, you also see court orders unconditional release of Emefiele. The story is on page 18 of the paper. Right on top of the nameplate, we didn't change INEC Commissioner nominee's name. Find out who's speaking on page 18.
Yeah, and accused them yesterday.
The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory is making news here. Wike approves maintenance funds for National Mosque Christian Center. The story is on page 20 of the paper. We'll leave it there for Leadership Friday.
And how about the Vanguard newspaper this morning? The Vanguard newspaper is talking about electricity, and we've talked about this I don't know how many times. Electricity policy flip-flop threatens $155 million smart meters project. The details of that you find on the inside pages, but check out the riders for some insight. Bid requires high turnover, cash flow, others in dollars. Indigenous manufacturers kick, petition FG. Interministerial committee swings into action, report puts installed capacity at 4.5 million. TCN PMU reopens controversial bid. Experts call for cancellation and engagement. Find the details, as I said, on the inside pages. But I don't know what you make of this, especially given that some of these things are said to be denominated in dollars. But the one that's giving me a little bit of concern is where indigenous manufacturing is in jeopardy. I think that is one thing that the president and a few other people have spoken about for a while, and we should give it due attention. That's the lead story. Tax-seeking insurgents kill 40 in Yobe attacks. What does that mean? Oh my God. Story is on page 6 of the paper this morning. That story is right above the nameplate. Now look at Mr. and Mrs. very quickly, as Malkwa would say, or remind us it's a Friday morning. Mrs. seems to have just served Mr. And she says, prices of food items are skyrocketing by the day. It costs quite a packet for that food to land in front of you. And Mr. simply asks, so how much is the landing cost? That's the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
Okay, Daily Trust next then. Manufacturers groan as diesel price hits 1,300 naira per litre. It's hitting us hard, truckers. Factories may shut down, experts. Inflation may get worse. So there you go. That's yeah. They also have their own version of reps rejecting the 5 billion naira presidential yacht past supplementary budget. So all eyes on the Senate now about this one. And the resident electoral commissioners. We wait to see what their response will be on that. It doesn't matter if they passed it. I mean, several people have said the same way that it was sent can be withdrawn. We've seen it happen before. We've seen several persons who have been screened and cleared by the Senate, withdrawn, and another person screened and cleared. It's there in books, in history, record books. So this should not be an exception, I reckon. That's Daily Trust this morning.
Well, I'm looking at The Guardian this morning. It's very interesting. In all of my thinking, I would never have thought that we could ever get to the point where we'll classify this. But they will know what they're talking about. It's a very big investigation that they've done, and it's right there. White elephant game. That's the lead story right there. White elephant game.
What game would that be?
Unviable football clubs drain states billions of naira yearly. That's what you find on the front page there. So you see club expenses. 20 clubs in Nigeria Premier Football League spend between 230 million to 250 million per season each. An average player earns between 350k to 500k monthly. That player is 1 million and above. Technical officials is how much they earn. Winning bonuses are 50,000 naira monthly. Clubs spend 20 million naira monthly as salaries for players. And then they just give you all of that. And the prize for league winner is 100 million naira. But, you know, sometimes you have to ask whether the amount of money that states say they spend on the football clubs that they own is actually how much they truly spend on those football clubs.
That's the point they're trying to make.
That's the point they're trying to make.
Because when they say unviable.
Unviable, yeah. So, we know that we follow the league, the local league. And we know that a lot of states own football clubs. Mm-hmm. But are they really spending what it is that they say they're spending on these clubs? Or, you know, are some other, do they have ghost players, for instance, and ghost officials? That's if
so
they do.
Audit the accounts and then find out.
It needs to be audited. Otherwise, what they're playing is a white elephant game.
Because we know that, look, everybody cannot win the league, that's for sure. We know everybody cannot be promoted, everybody cannot be relegated. So all of those are constant K, as they say. But unviable, you need to read it and find out.
Indeed.
We cannot scrap the game. Mm-hmm. We cannot scrap that game. Because the implications will be way much more than that word unviable. So maybe try and see what is going on wrong that needs to be corrected. But probably that's the point. But you need to read the story though.
Yes, pages 4 and 5 have details for you. And you all look at that at the bottom here. WHO ranks Nigeria highest out-of-pocket expenditure nation in West Africa. In other words, we do not have a credit system.
That's why insurance, health, off.
Yes, it's tough, but you also have to ask, is that also a mental thing for us? I don't know.
Well, that's about if they have work systems that work, function. Look at how people use ATMs, use credit cards, use those system facilities.
Do you use your, my bank has been advertising your credit card to me, and I'm like, I am not taking any debts. I don't want to be in your debts. So I'm wondering whether it is a psychological thing as well, a cultural thing for us. Importers opt for trucks as multiple charges hobble NRC's cargo haulage target. Okay, so it does appear that that is taking a while to eventually pick up, but let's leave it there for the Guardian newspapers.
Okay, look at this, Nigeria. No presidential yacht. Reps exclude 5 billion naira cruiser request in 2023 supplementary budget. I didn't ask for it, Tinubu. Senate silence on controversial vessel approves 2.17 trillion naira budget. You see, I'm not the only one who is thinking Senate. What says thou? Well, now it says Senate silence. So maybe they will eventually speak because the budget, of course, they have to jointly pass it. So they will have, you'll get to know what they think eventually. And then at the bottom strip, arrest, prosecute those who brutalized NLC president. ASUP tells, ASUP urges Tinubu, that's politics now. And then you see at the bottom strip, Osadema accuses Ajero of politicizing labor activities in Imo. Question is that why he was brutalized? Okay.
It's a valid question.
Is that what will happen to anybody who
politicizes their questions?
Oh, wow. and the elections are coming.
You know what I'm saying, Chamberlain? Please don't go to Imo and don't politicize your questions.
Oh, dear. Well, maybe this might be something to cheer on business day. Relief in sight as CBN has... Oh, is this? Okay. Maybe it's a good one for everybody. That's so. I think we're out of the way. Is it press down? Let me see. Where's that? It disappeared. Or is it payment of the Forex backlog?
Okay, yes.
All right. So there you go. That ends it. We'll look at some of the dailies here this morning. So we will be back in a moment. Stay on with us.
The Senate reconvenes to continue the screening of presidential nominees as resident electoral commissioners. In a committee of the whole, the Senate screens the nominees from Lagos, Rivers, and Zamfara states, questioning them on various aspects of election management and subsequently asking them to take a bow and leave.
The Senate approved the nominations as follows. Dr. Bumi Omesheyindem for Lagos State, Dr. Onubum Onoha from Rivers State, Mr. Abubakar Fawa Dambo from Zamfara State, as resident electoral commissioners RECs. For the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, those in favor of the confirmation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
7 nominees were earlier screened by the Senate, bringing the total number of confirmations to 10. The nominations were, however, greeted with controversy by some members of the civil society organizations, criticizing at least 2 of the nominees.
These are individuals who are really out there in public who have professed their political preference and alignment. And we've been screaming and shouting and advocating and telling our politicians that there is grave danger when INEC is populated by politicians.
The People's Democratic Party particularly condemned the appointment of Mr. Etekamba Omoren from Akwa Ibom State and Mr. Issa Ehimiane from Edo State, describing it as provocative.
The PDP, therefore, in clear and unequivocal terms, reject the imposition of Etekamba Omoren as INEC rec in Akwa Ibom State, being conceived in iniquity and in a flagrant violation of the express provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, and the universal demand of impartiality and non-partisanship of an electoral body and its officials.
However, the Senate says there is a leeway for a review if any petition is presented.
No Nigerian is wrong for calling for either a recall or upholding of whoever that is current, because everybody has right either to complain, either to pass comment, either to ask questions, but it has to be properly done.
So you did not receive any petition?
No. If prior to the appearance of these nominees for Senate, there have been petitions, there have been security reports suggesting that they could be compromised, or suggesting that they are not fit because they are going to handle electoral matters. Definitely they should not have political parties that they belong to. Then definitely the Senate will look. But the afterthought criticisms, the afterthought reasons why we should not do this and why we should not do that, does not arise. All these names were just in public domain. So it's not for us, it's not for me, it's not for anybody to suggest that you are likely to be a member of a party. It's not for me, it's not for anybody to do. That whoever has the fact is supposed to bring the fact before the Senate.
He also explains why the recs were not screened at the committee level.
We want to do it openly so that Nigerians will see them, and then they will talk before Nigerians, and then everybody.
He firmly assures that when a petition is officially presented, the lawmakers will accord them paramount consideration. From the Senate, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us on the program. And that's where we begin with. You can see that a good number of issues were raised in that report by my colleague, Gloria. But let's start with the need for electoral reforms this morning, particularly what many people adjudge to be a skewed appointment of INEC RECs, which has party members or supposed party members confirmed. Mr. Femi Falana joins us, as you see in that welcoming slide. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you for joining us again this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, the INEC RECs, you know about that. I mean, the Supreme Court has ruled on such things before. The Constitution is very clear on that part in the third schedule. It should be non-partisan and all. One of the questions that I asked yesterday, our guest, who is also a legal practitioner, was, could the president have missed it? Could the Senate have missed it? But, of course, he said he couldn't have missed it. But the question that I'm asking you is, what do you make of it? How does it help the integrity of INEC? Is INEC independent? So many questions to ask. One finds it difficult to even pin it to one.
Well, since 1999, we've had this terrible experience of a ruling party trying to people the electoral body with party loyalists and sympathizers. And that was what led to the amendment of the Constitution. I mean, it will interest you. The APC, and the civil society organizations were complaining against the appointment of members of the ruling party, that is, the PDP then. As a matter of fact, the bitter experience of our country led the Mohammed Ways panel to recommend that the chairman or the chairperson, national commissioners of INEC, and resident electoral commissioners be appointed by advertisement. In other words, you invite candidates who would like to serve the nation at that level. And then the National Judicial Council was recommended to shortlist the best 3 and then send to the Senate via the Council of State. Because the Council of State is required to advise the president on the choice of electoral chiefs. But that was not adopted by both the PDP and the APC. So you have this problem again. With respect to the last appointment, for me, the last has not been said about it. It has been shown, without any challenge, that 4 out of the 10 resident electoral commissioners recently appointed by the president and who have now been asked to take a bow, as it were, in the Senate, are card-carrying members of political parties. 3 of them are APC members, while the 4th one is a member of the PDP. I think, happily, the Akwa Ibom state chapter of the PDP went to court yesterday to sue over the appointment of Mr. Umoren, former chief of staff to the Senate president, the current Senate president, Senator Akpabio, and the chieftain of the APC in Akwa Ibom State. So the PDP has gone to court. I also expect others to go to court to challenge the appointment or the competence of the 3 others.
Even though the Senate has confirmed?
No, it doesn't matter. Once an appointment is illegal, there's no confirmation that can legitimize it. Because we must begin, right? The commitment to have credible elections in 2027, the shame of bad elections in Nigeria must stop. And President Tinubu holds it a duty not only to encourage INEC to conduct good elections, he must also ensure that his own promise to have credible elections in Nigeria is fulfilled. As a matter of fact, since 2007, successive regimes in Nigeria, Yar'Adua regime, Jonathan regime, Buhari regime, have all set up electoral reform committees or panels to make recommendations that will assist the government to have credible elections. In the case of President Tinubu, as a candidate, as a leader of the ACN, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu set up a committee, CODA, Committee for, Electoral Reforms, to campaign for the implementation of the recommendations of the Ways panel. And one of them is that we must have independent umpires in every material particular. You know, you can't have a member, a card-carrying member of a political party or a loyalist of a party to be a resident electoral commissioner or a national commissioner. You complicate the problems for INEC to have credible elections.
So, anyway, I'll leave all of that one because, I mean, it's even difficult to conjecture sometimes. But, you know, another rather troubling one is, and I know that maybe Malquay and Chamberlain will come back to this one, but another troubling one is the fact that cases, electoral cases, the validity of those cases moved from the polling units to the courts. It sounds or comes across to a good number of people like after we have voted, votes counted, and INEC has made the announcements, the final, should I say, unauthorized electoral college, so to speak, is the courts that will now determine whether or not the election held at the polling units were substantive or not. Now, you spoke to the Supreme Court decision before then, and you made, you know, it sounds like, look, well, let's just see what's going to happen, but I mean, you really weren't expecting much change. In that situation, where the courts are the one that tend to decide. For instance, Natasha Akpoti, you know, has also just been confirmed as the winner
of a senatorial
seat when someone else had initially been sworn in. So all these issues, and a good number of them have been upturned like that. When does that end?
Where it's going to end is the determination, this time around, of all stakeholders, lawyers, judges, political leaders. We need to resolve that never again are we going to allow judges to determine or confirm the results of election. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. And that is why I've repeatedly challenged my colleagues. Are you aware that we have the largest number of election petitions in the world? In fact, it may surprise you. Contrary to the information out there or the impression out there, this year we recorded almost the lowest number of election petitions since 2003. 436 petitions. In 2019, we had 807 election petitions. In 2007, the worst election we have ever conducted in Nigeria, Nigeria recorded 1,282 election petitions. But what will surprise you, and this is why, frankly speaking, apart from late arrival of materials, snatching of beavers machines in certain areas, and the failure of INEC to transmit results from polling units to his central server. Frankly speaking, those are the allegations against INEC with respect to the political class. The political class, members of the political class are not prepared for credible elections. And we must interrogate that. What I mean is this. The management of pre-election matters. I'm talking of mismanagement of primaries of the parties. Led to a situation where 1,878 cases were filed in the Federal High Court. Pre-election cases. So for months, the Federal High Court, majority of the Federal High Court judges could not handle any other matter. 2. In Ekiti, under Governor Fayemi. In Imo State, under Governor Okorocha. In Katsina State, under Governor Masari. In Oyo State, under Governor Makinde, and others. the Supreme Court has declared illegal the dissolution of democratically elected local government councils and replacement with appointed caretaker committees. But up till now, the governors still continue to dissolve local government, still continue to appoint caretaker committees currently in just in Plateau State. The governor there, I think, is a lawyer of not less than 30 years. There is a court order, thou shalt not dissolve democratically elected council. It dissolved them and appointed caretaker committees. We have that in about 8 states now. And okay, some of them say, okay, we are going to hold credible election. Don't worry, you say we should be holding election, we'll hold them. What happens? The members of the state independent electoral commissions conduct the worst elections anywhere in the world, where the chairmanship candidates and the councillorship candidates of the ruling party in every state must win all the elections. So you must therefore go back to the drawing table. Instead of blaming INEC alone for the crisis that we're going through, to what extent are leaders, political leaders, prepared to embrace democracy?
Does that then mean that the state independent electoral commissions are not independent?
Oh, nobody says they're independent. Nobody says that. Nobody. Nobody. That is why the candidates of opposition parties can never win election in any of those states.
Are they not supposed to be independent?
They are under the Constitution. They are independent on paper, but in practice, this is what you are just going through now. Once you appoint your political party members or agents as members of an electoral body, what do you expect?
Okay, now, part of what you were saying the other time when you talked about the Supreme Court making its mind up about some things in the electoral, commission and electoral reforms and all, there have been suggestions, and I know you have heard them, that we should have elections. Those conversations have been coming up since the Supreme Court ruled that we should conduct elections and resolve all electoral disputes before the swearing in of whoever is going to be president or governor.
It's not a fresh suggestion. Again, that is one of the recommendations, one of the principal recommendations of the Mohammed Woes panel, i.e., that we should conduct elections at least 6 months to the inauguration of the incoming government, whereby all election petitions will have been concluded. And we have no choice, because it is ridiculous to have governors, the president, legislators, and others in place, only for them, after 6 months, 8 months, or 10 months to be removed. It's wasteful, and it doesn't portray us as serious people before the world. So we must therefore go back to the implementation of those remaining recommendations of the Woes panel. One of it is conclusion of election petitions before the inauguration of new government. Secondly, we must have in place an electoral offences commission to deal with those who violate the law, those who commit serious crime during election, before, during, and after election. Those who manipulate results, those who engage in thuggery and violence.
Okay.
Because if you allow the ruling parties, either at the federal or state level, you won't get anything, because the attorneys general usually are in the habit of filing nolle prosecuting. We don't want these talks prosecuted. Even the last election, somebody was arrested in Rivers State with humongous sum of money, I think about $500,000. It was charged. The state government has discontinue the case.
I know my colleagues want to come in on this one, but if the chief law officer of a state is saying that he's doing the things that you're talking about, then who is going to take him up? How does this trend end?
Only his appointer. Only the president or the governor that appointed him or her can take it up. But if we're talking of party alliance, and that was why the panel made that recommendation. There should be an independent body to deal with electoral offenses. But what did the National Assembly do? What has the National Assembly done since then is to say, INEC, you prosecute, knowing that INEC does not have the capacity to prosecute. And that leads to the other recommendation by the panel, by the woes panel, that we must unbundle INEC. We must have a political party registration commission. We must have an electoral offenses commission. Of course, we have INEC to conduct election only. Okay. The other one that you mentioned, that's apart from concluding election petitions before the inauguration of government, we must also add now that we must conclude all pre-election cases before the election. In other words, who is qualified to contest election, who has won a party primary, and so on and so forth. Because it is wasteful, it's incongruous, and rather funny that while somebody is in office who has been voted for by the people, you now wake up and say, sorry, he should not have contested the election because he wasn't qualified or he didn't win the primary. Where should that be after the electorate, after the people have decided this is our choice?
Okay. Chamberlain.
Morning, Mr. Fadana. Well, part of what several persons have suggested following the cases from the Supreme Court, some say the way it does appear now, it comes across as though we're always putting INEC on the defensive with the cases that they have to join them in court. And they then suggested that either we make them an independent body, and some others think it may not be a bad idea if we probably shift the burden of proof on INEC so that they don't always come across as though they're defending whatever it is that might have happened. Would this be a good one?
Chamberlain, I think my colleagues should not give the impression that they are making new suggestions. It's not fair to give the impression that these are new suggestions. Again, if we go back to the woes panel, this is one of the recommendations that INEC should, the onus should shift right now. The onus is on the petitioner to prove that INEC has not substantially complied with the law or prove beyond reasonable doubt that allegations made are proved. And upon a review of the electoral system, the woes panel recommended a new electoral jurisprudence whereby once you can show that the election has not been properly conducted, not beyond reasonable doubt, mere allegations, the onus should shift to INEC, which conducted the election, to prove that it has conducted the election in substantial compliance with the law. For instance, if you are arrested, Chamberlain, and God forbid, if you are arrested, and I can go to court on your behalf to say that Chamberlain was arrested at the Unity Fountain while a protest was going on, is currently being detained at the police headquarters. That is all that is required of me. The onus shifts to the police or the State Security Service, EFCC, or any of them to show, Chamberlain should not have been there. He went beyond the call of duty, and we saw, maybe a weapon where he was standing. That was why we arrested him. So the onus is on the police to prove the legality of the detention or the arrest. And that is what we are saying. Once you can show that election was manipulated or rigged, the onus should shift to INEC to prove that we conducted the election, because INEC has the materials, all the materials. INEC has all the results. Why should I go to court to apply for the materials? So, and I think that is the basis of that suggestion.
Okay. So, when you also mentioned that, yeah, we should have special commission for prosecution of electoral offenses, are we also going to have special courts for electoral offenses? How should that play out?
No, we're not going to have special courts. For instance, during the last election, close to 2,000 suspects were arrested across the country. I'm aware, I think about 6 months ago, or no, about 3 months ago, INEC had already sent to INEC case files of over 200 suspects. And I'm aware, because INEC does not have the facilities to prosecute all of them, or them, INEC has entered into an agreement with the Nigerian Bar Association to have the suspect prosecuted. And what is being suggested is that there should be an electoral offenses commission, just like the EFCC, for the purpose of election, to go around and arrest all suspects, all persons that are disrupting elections or threatening elections, the conduct of good elections. At the end of the election, investigation will be conducted, and once the investigation is carried out, the Electoral Offences Commission will file the offenses in the appropriate court. So you don't need separate court. They will be filed either in the magistrate court or in the high court. This is the recommendation of woes panel.
Okay. Now, about the judiciary, I mean, we also have heard some who cases have gone against them, either in the House of Reps, Senate, even governorship. They say that there's been a lot of inconsistency in the principles in the judiciary now, with the judgments that have been handed down. Many of them are of the opinion that there's something not going right there, that even the precedents established in the judiciary is being abused, and something needs to be done. In fact, they fell short of saying there's a lot of corruption in the judiciary, and it needs to be addressed.
Well, again, we have advised colleagues who handle election petitions to advise their clients if they have no good cases, if they have bad cases. You don't have to go to court. Again, unless we all combine forces, unless we all decide to conduct good elections. I've said it repeatedly. Judges are not suited to decide the winners of election. Judges are bound by the evidence laid before them in deciding who won elections or who lost elections. So if a lawyer did not put before the court relevant materials, the court is not a Father Christmas, as is often said. The court can simply not decide, oh, we are giving victory to a person who has not been proved to have won an election. That is not to say that our judges, particularly the Court of Appeal, and even Election Petition Tribunal, in this age of internet, this age of technology, to circulate their judgments and ensure that there is consistency. And the question of technicality, I mean, you cannot but have technicalities. The law is about technicalities. But we're asking our judges to embrace justice, substantial justice, in a way that you cannot punish voters for the errors of INEC. And I think that was what recently happened in Kano, where 165,000 votes were said to have been annulled because they were not marked by INEC officials. What is my business as a voter? Is to go to the polling unit, collect the ballot paper, mark it, thumbprint, and then give to the INEC or throw it into the ballot box. So how can I now decide? I mean, how will I know whether it is manned by INEC or not? So you cannot punish. The courts are not empowered to punish voters because of the negligence of INEC officials. And it is so stated in the law that once the results have been counted, I mean, the results have been declared, once the votes have been counted, you cannot annul. You cannot challenge the validity of the ballot paper. So I think these are the areas that our judges will have to go back to the drawing table and ensure that substantial justice, is given to petitioners and respondents. But what is important? Let us conduct good elections. And I was just talking of the figures now. In 2015, we had few petitions because the election, based on the use of car readers then, it was difficult for those who were, people I call ceasing the election riggers. It was difficult for them to inflate figures. And that is what the Beavers machine has also done, i.e., to have electronic accreditation of voters. Once you do that, you then ensure that results are transmitted to the central server of INEC. So what you need at the end of the day will be two reports. Reports of accreditation via Beavers machine and the results that have been transmitted by the INEC. Once you have those two reports, why should you be in a tribunal for 6 months? To prove what? In clear. Because the system has been technologized. Presidential election petitions are handled by the Supreme Court within 14 days. It is the same situation in Zambia. So I'm not talking of the United States or the UK. I'm talking of the development in Africa today. And we must move with time. We must lead the continent in delivering good elections. And that is doable. That is possible. Happily, the Senate just rose from a retreat in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, where the senators resolved collectively that the Electoral Act be amended to allow or to make transmission of election results compulsory. I do hope that the House of Reps that will be meeting in Lagos, I think in the middle of this month, will also concur so that we can rush back to the National Assembly and have amendments of the Electoral Act. One, to have transmission of results, perfect the use of Beavers machines, conclude all pre-election matters before elections, conclude all election petitions before the inauguration of government, set up the Electoral Offences Commission to be able to deal with malfeasance or electoral malpractice. Once we can ensure that these basic recommendations are carried out, we can then confidently, prepare for the 2007 elections or the elections that will be held between now and 2007.
2027.
What?
I guess you mean 2000, excuse me, I think you mean 2027, Mr. Falano. But I guess the message is already passed across, and it's good to see that the Senate is thinking in that direction.
Yes.
But I'd like to visit again the appointment of these resident electoral commissioners, and you have confirmed that you have been able to identify at least 4 partisan people, and these names have been making their way on social media with hard evidence. But there's some people who will say, that it's also possible that they have resigned their membership of these political parties. some people have faulted the fact that there is nothing in our laws that provides a moratorium, a period whereby people must have been non-partisan for a while before they are appointed into political offices. And then there are some people who also say, look, somebody might be wearing a political party uniform, which is everybody now knows at least maybe where that person's loyalty might lie, but it doesn't mean that the person cannot be neutral. Some people make that argument, and some people say, oh, when you also have people who are purportedly neutral but are doing things that favor a political party, shouldn't we just as well know that we're populating the place maybe with equal number of political representatives from each political party, instead of saying that, oh, we're doing away with political alignment, and we have people who are neutral, who are truly not neutral. Do you think that we've truly considered all of the options when it comes to the appointment of our resident electoral commissioners?
Well, the amendment of the Constitution to the effect that only independent people, non-partisan persons will be appointed as electoral umpires was based, that recommendation, the amendment was anchored on our experience, whereby those who resign and become resident electoral commissioners or national electoral commissioners betray the country in the past. And you can't just say, oh, whereas I was a member of a political party up to yesterday, today now I moved to become a resident electoral commissioner or a national electoral commissioner. Therefore, I will forget my alliance to my former political party. I would then become totally neutral when the country has produced in all the states of the Federation good people, independent-minded people, people of integrity, who can conduct good elections. And the whole idea is this: once you apply to be a resident electoral commissioner or a national commissioner, the law says, WAY's recommendation is that your CV should be published, you apply, and then the members of the public will find out who you are. For instance, if a lecturer was in the habit of selling marks, it doesn't have to belong to a political party. He now says, please, I want to be a rec or a national commissioner of finance. Oh, some student will say, sorry, you were selling marks to us. So if you become a resident electoral commissioner, you are likely to sell votes. And this is the whole idea.
I think that is taken. So would you say then that the Senate even breached its own rules? Because from what we understand, the practice is that these names ought to have been referred to its committee on electoral matters, but they didn't go there. Now, when we spoke with the Senate spokesperson yesterday, he said, oh, it was because the Senate Committee of the Whole wanted to consider those names in totality, and they wanted to give the entire Senate the benefit of the doubt to be able to ask them questions. But there are those who have also raised questions about the speed with which these resident electoral commissioners were confirmed. I mean, the names are presented on Tuesday, and by Thursday, all 10 of them had been confirmed. Would you say that the Senate breached its own rules, its own processes, in terms of how it went about the confirmation of these commissioners?
What Senator Akpabio did, I haven't realized the allegations against some of the resident electoral commissioners, particularly 4 of them. He decided not to allow the committee to have a say, because those who have petitions against them were rushing to the committee, hoping that the committee will listen to them before recommending to the General House, the plenary. But what happened this time was that Senator Akpabio decided to waive and simply invite the nominees to the plenary session, and without considering the petitions, including affidavits. The nominees were simply, as usual, take a bow. But again, as I said, that is not the end of the matter. Just yesterday, the PDP in Akwa Ibom State has gone to court. And I do know that there is an electoral alliance group of civil society organizations that are also going to court any moment from now. Because we must get it right this time around. No sentiment this time around. Because we can't go on like this. We can't go on interminably. You can't go on like this. And that is why this time around, every aspect of the electoral process will have to be taken very seriously. That is the position.
Yesterday, the People's Democratic Party, as a party of a political party, held a press conference on this matter, decrying what had happened on the floor of the Senate. But then there are questions as to what exactly the role of the opposition is. Because people have also asked questions as to why it was that, the generality of the Senate looked like they endorsed what had happened on the floor of the Senate. There was not one objection on the floor of the Senate yesterday. Did that give you, did you feel anyhow in terms of, how that passed without any objections on the floor of the Senate, not even from members of the opposition?
Mapwe, in the Second Republic, what happened was that you had political parties. They were ideologically based. At that time, the UPN of the late Obafemi Awolowo and PRP of Aminu Kano worked together in the National Assembly and opposed unpopular policies of the MPN, the ruling MPN, and the MPP. At a stage, GMPP of Ibrahim Waziri joined the two other progressive parties. Today, there is ideological, in fact, ideology is gone in the National Assembly. So they are an alliance. And that is why, in fact, the few dissenting voices from the Senate have come, very few, from the ruling party. I recall an instance where I think it was only Senator Adams Oshiomhole that challenged the appointment of the policies of central bank governors in Nigeria. Now, the opposition parties, some of the senators felt, why is this guy disturbing us? Oh, does he think he's still a labor leader? So, in the National Assembly, unless Nigerians rise up, unless Nigerians decide, and I think that was what happened yesterday. I think one of the items in the supplementary budget, because of the general popular opposition to it, the House of Reps, of course, the Senate, as usual, had passed it, but the House of Reps, we have to move this to the student loan or whatever. So we must be very vigilant. Nigerians must wake up regardless of political affiliation and ensure that we have good elections, we run the economy properly in the interest of our people. But if you are expecting members of the opposition in the Senate or the House of Reps to bail Nigeria out of crisis, you may have to wait for too long.
All right, there's this recommendation by Justice Dattijo on the representation in Supreme Court. I'd like you to listen to it, and then let's get your perspective on what he says.
As the justices who hear these matters are grossly overstretched, unable to meet the demands of their onerous assignment, the litigants who approach the court seeking justice are left in limbo, waiting endlessly for justice to be served. These, as I have said before, are avoidable. While I exit today, the North Central Zone that I represent ceases to have any representation until such a time new appointments are made. My Lord Honorable Justice Ejembi Eko, who also represented the zone, retired on the 23rd of May 2022. My Lord Honorable Justice Sylvester Mwani Mbuta, JSC, died on the 7th of March 2021. I repeat, 2021. There has not been any appointment in his stead for the Southeast. To ensure justice and transparency in presidential appeals, thank God they have been hard and determined. All geopolitical zones need to be represented. They are required to participate in the hearing of such appeals. It is therefore dangerous, or it was therefore dangerous, for democracy and equity for two entire regions to be left out in the decisions that affect the generality of Nigerians.
How do you respond to that, Mr. Faranat? All regions of Nigeria to be represented at the Supreme Court?
The way I look at it is this. And I made this point here sometimes. We must run the country on the basis of rule of law. We just discussed the appointment of Resident Electoral Commissioner. What does the law say about it? Every appointment, what does the law say about it? The Constitution provides that the full complement of the Supreme Court will be 21 justices. We've never met, that figure. What then happens? Each geopolitical zone in the country has a number of justices, or should have a number of justices in the Supreme Court. So that's what the law provides. I mean, that's a practice. Why have we not filled the vacancies is the issue. We've raised it, lawyers have raised it. In my own case, I blame my colleagues who are members of the Federal Judicial Service Commission and the National Judicial Council for not insisting that those vacancies be filled. Because that's why you have lawyers there and members of the public. Having said that, I'm also aware that the process for filling the vacancies in the Supreme Court has been put in place for some time, but the process has been very slow. Now that the number has been reduced to 10 justices, to avoid a constitutional crisis, the NJC must move speedily to fill those vacancies.
What's the process?
The crisis that can occur is if you have a situation where 4 out of the remaining 10 justices decline to sit on the case, maybe because they are taking part in the matter at the Court of Appeal or for ties, family ties with the parties, then you are going to have a constitutional crisis where you are supposed to have a panel of 7 justices. Mama won't worry. And I also want to challenge our judges. All our judges. Don't wait until you're retiring. Until you are retiring. Don't wait until you are going to give a valedictory speech. While you are there, insist on the necessary changes that should be carried out. Insist, even if you are going to cause a crisis, for the system to have those vacancies filled. Because like His Lordship said, some of those vacancies occurred 2-3 years ago.
Well, you said the other time that the process is slow. What is the process for, filling up those spaces, and who is supposed to take the lead? And
the
why is it so
process
slow?
is that you start from the Federal Judicial Service Commission, right? Recommendations are made to the Federal Judicial Service Commission. Recommendations are made to the National Judicial Council. Once the candidates are okayed, then the names will go to the president. I think there was a time, about 5 years ago, whereby a number of judges were to be appointed. But for a year, they were not sworn in, because the system was waiting for others. Right? So the point I'm making therefore is, this should be the last time that we are waiting for a judge to retire before filling his place. Once we can put in place a system that will compel the two bodies, Federal Judicial Service Commission and National Judicial Council, to set the engine in motion for filling vacancies and not wait for 2-3 years. We won't have this problem.
Is that to say that we don't have the system?
No, we have a system, but I'm saying that it's slow. And I'm saying, let us all go back to the Constitution and the relevant law. There is the Federal Character Commission Act. And I've said it before, if we have two positions, one must go up, one must come there. If there are 4, 2-2. If there are 6, 1 per geopolitical zone. And if you are going to have, that has been the experience in the Supreme Court, 4 justices per geopolitical zone, then you have the Chief Justice to make the number 21. But what will interest you? Again, it's not about really where you come from. Because those who may want to criticize His Lordship may also say, even in the presidential election, the 3 justices, including the Chief Justice from the Southwest, did not sit on the panel. So it's not about ethnic representation. It's actually about complying with the law by ensuring that all parts of the country are represented in the Supreme Court at all times.
Well, so many other things to bring up, but we are completely out of time at this time. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Mr. Femi Falana is Senior Advocate of Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Well, there is another issue when we return from this break. Do stay with us.
Papa, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Sit down.
How you doing now?
They can't pay.
I bring your medicine.
Thank you.
Papa, where Miko?
Miko don't go work. Miko don't join oil business.
Oil business?
Yes, sir.
Which company? Papa, Miko don't they follow them go cook oil? That's illegal.
Oh, small oil. No,
it's a crime. That kind of business no good for Miko at all. It is illegal and very dangerous.
What happened?
Wow. Papa, na fire for there with the cook oil. Who just hear stuff from nowhere?
My country people, palava we bunker an illegal refinery they cause for the community. E too plenty. Our picking them we get better future. Don't they pay me on top? We they carry our own hand. Spoil we land and water. I beg you, no follow the do or sponsor this kind of business. Now Pipeline Infrastructure Nigeria Limited and NNPCL say make we tell you now.
The eyes of the nation will be on Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo states as the people march to the polls on November 11, 2023. But violent activities are already happening in parts of these states. Security chiefs are talking tough. The people people wait with bated breath as insecurity might affect voters' confidence. Channels Television, in collaboration with Kimpact, brings the security of the elections to the front burner to guarantee safety of the people and voters' confidence in a People's Town Hall. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu, National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu, Inspector General of Police Kayode Egbetokun, party leaders and major stakeholders in one room for the sake of our nation. Watch this special town hall on the 5th of November 2023, 7 p.m. live on Channels Television. This special town hall is brought to you with support of the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office, FCDO.
All right, welcome back. Dr. Vincent Olatunji joins us next here in the studios. He's the National Commissioner and CEO of Nigeria Data Protection Commission. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Morning, and thank you for having me.
So, has there been any fundamental difference from when it was a bureau to a commission for you?
Yes, a lot. Something as simple as joining the Global Privacy Assembly, of about 230 countries. When we were a bureau, we applied, that was last year, but they said we were just using a regulation in Nigeria, and more importantly, just a bureau. Rejected the application. But this year, about 3 weeks ago, we applied again, and we will be accredited as a member of that global privacy body. In terms of our powers, what we can do, very different. Now, we didn't have a law then. Now we have a law. The law is like giving you the authority to operate, the authority to work. And in terms of respect, recognition locally and internationally, a lot of people say, oh, we make business in Nigeria by having a law and the commission. So when we were a bureau, we were just using a regulation that was passed under the Act. So with this law, becoming the commission, a lot of things
so
that we have to
how does that benefit the country and maybe companies here?
Yeah, if you look at Section 1H of the law, talks about global competitiveness of our businesses. A lot of countries, a lot of organizations that are outside Nigeria are not willing to do business with you. You don't have a data protection law. Because the issue of trust and confidence, whatever they do online transactions, the trust and confidence that when I do a transaction online, when I carry out a transaction, there's that trust and belief that that transaction will go on seamlessly without any issue. Two, if there are issues in terms of identity theft, malicious use of your personal data, unauthorized access to your data, which you have shared with them, they have somewhere to go. They have a law that can actually protect them in terms of their privacy and their protection. So with all this, people that believe that yes, with the law and the Data Protection Authority, which is independent, they believe yes, there is more respect for what they do for their privacy and their protection of their their personal data. So the difference is there now.
Have you had any recent case, and how was the enforcement? How did you resolve it?
Yes, between when we started and now, we've investigated about 10 organizations, banks, telcos, even a university, an insurance firm, a consulting firm. But our approach has always been for us to do the right thing in Nigeria. We don't want to start announcing our fines or penalties. But when we started with the first bank that we investigated, for the fact that we even mentioned their name, stakeholders started withdrawing their shares and customers started withdrawing their money. They're like, a lot of people don't even understand what you're talking about. The fact that, oh, this bank is being investigated, that bank is in trouble. Let me go and take my money from them. So now the approach that has been, we invite them. We have what we call pack with them. That's the actual conference to find out what actually happened. Was it deliberate? Was it because they didn't put in place enough measures to ensure the protection of privacy of their customers? Or if there was an accident or if it was a mistake? So nobody is actually perfect. Then if they are ready to cooperate, we take them through remediation. But the most important thing to us is that culture of compliance, that we see it as a duty that I have to perform. What I have to do to ensure to enhance the trust and confidence of my customer, to ensure that we are in line with global best practice. So we take them through compliance and we just tell them to pay their remediation fee instead of penalty, because the penalty is huge. It can be as low as 2%, as low as about 10 million, that's the highest maximum, and as high as 2% of your gross earnings for the year. If a company earned 100 billion last year, that ended to pay 2 billion to government. So that is huge. In fact, the bank that I was talking about, they actually came to us, they said, if you continue this way, almost all the top management of this bank will go. And do you actually want people to lose jobs? No, we don't.
But do you consistently remind them of what the rules say, don't fall foul of this, for those who claim ignorance?
Yes, it's part of, it's a major pillar on the agenda, awareness, which is really key, and capacity building for everybody in the ecosystem, for everybody in your organization to probably understand the issues around data privacy. For instance, you go to a bank, you want to collect your ATM card or bank draft or something. The next thing they do is to bring out a book.
Yeah.
You write your name, your telephone number, your account number, and you sign. Somebody can just get a snap. Already has access, unauthorized access to your information. And the following day, they are calling you to say, oh, you came to a bank yesterday, you carried out this transaction, now for you to complete the transaction or to ensure that your bank account is secured, you need to we'll send a code to you, What did it happen? Because they had unauthorized access to your information. So these are things you are telling organizations, even up to your messengers. That can be the weakest link in your organization. You need to let them know issues around data privacy. That's why awareness is really key. And we'll be doing a lot with them. We've actually met one-on-one with top management on banks. We had sessions with them. Since in Abuja, I talked to them, and because our video conferencing facilities top-notch. From their branches, in any part of it, they can connect. So awareness is really key, and this is part of what we try to tell them. And during the process of taking them through remediation, it's part of what we tell them. And even after paying your remediation fee, we still monitor for 6 months to ensure that you are doing the right thing. And the areas of non-conformity that we have identified that might have led to that breach, we ensure that we take care of them. By the time you are your DPCO, Data Protection Compliance Organization, these are people that we have licensed to carry out compliance on their behalf. By the time they are coming next year to do your compliance audit, those loopholes will have been blocked. You can't have non-conformity this year, and you are still repeating the same thing next year. Definitely will take that up. So awareness is really key, and capacity building.
Well, initially when Chemelling asked about companies, I shot him a look from here because I would have been thinking that the focus would have been individuals. I know that, yes, companies are also seeking to, have their own data protected as well. I mean, information and what it is that they're able to gather is very important to them. Ministries, departments, and agencies of government too will also be seeking that. But the most vulnerable of the lot are individuals. And we've seen that, cybercrime, fraud, etc., seem to be on the rise in Nigeria. It's becoming a problem. Even the EFCC seems to be focusing more along those lines as well. But while you're working, because I don't know where you have the biggest challenge, is it at that micro level that you have the biggest challenge, or is it at the macro, let's say the mid-level, where you're dealing with companies, ministries, departments, and agencies?
Now, in this data privacy ecosystem, there are 4 major stakeholders. One is the data subject, that is you and I, over 200 million Nigerians. They now belong to different sectors. 2, we have data processors. These are those who collect data on behalf of data controllers. Data controllers are those who determine the way and manner your data with them to be used. And 4, the regulator. This is where we come in. Now, the data controllers and data processors are the ones who have your data. And what we are telling them to put in place is that accountability. To say that if the data of an average Nigerian that is with you, you are accountable. And you have to put in place that duty of care to ensure that the data is protected. Now, if there's any breach which has occurred within your database, within your system as a data controller, as a data processor, that breach will have affected an individual who is a data subject, or a group of people who are data subjects, who are your customers or your clients, whichever way it goes. Now, our focus is for, 1, the data subjects. Because everybody is a data subject. Now, if you're a data controller as a bank, your telco, you're a data subject. Your hospital, you're a data subject. If you visit your hotel, you're a data subject. Any other place you go, you're a data subject. Because the moment they collect your data, you're a data subject to such an organization. And such an organization is either your data controller or your data processor. So they need to take care of this. So we are looking at what have you put in place as a data controller, as a data processor, to ensure that the data of the data subject is protected.
Yes. So
now we are focusing on both. One, on the part of data subjects, to create awareness for them to know their rights. In terms of their right to be informed when their data is being collected, their consent to say, yes, I'm freely and willingly giving out my data to you to use for A, B, C, D. Right of rectification, to say, if there's any incorrect or inaccurate data, my data that you have with you, I have the right to ask for rectification. Right of relation, okay, I've given you my data for this number of days. I know more, I don't want to do any business with you anymore. You have to release my data from my database or automatic profile. All these are your rights as data subject. But the part of the data controllers will come to them. The duty that you owe these people is to ensure that you put in place technical measures in terms of firewalls, antivirus, encryption method that you have if you are sharing data with any other organization, and to ensure that you put it in place. Then in terms of organizational measures, your privacy policy, it should be simple, straightforward, easy to read and understand. Not all these lengthy privacy policy that before you even finish reading, you are tired, you just click yes. In terms of having a data protection officer who oversees your data processing activities to ensure that you are doing the right thing.
You know nobody actually does short privacy policy, right? You know everything is always in small print that nobody can read and does not have the patience
you know,
to
we were
read.
talking before we came live. It's part of what we are telling them to do, to say, you must have a DPO. But a lot of them don't even understand. When you have a DPO, it's your DPO that will tell you this is too lengthy. You must have a privacy statement. The privacy statement will just summarize who you are, what you do, the kind of data you collect, where your address is, the contact of your DPO. Now you cannot put an extension that will take them to the detailed privacy policy. So your privacy statement that should cover all you do, a summary of what you do. They will not want to have the detail. A lot of people will, I want to really see the cocoa in this thing. So I'll click to see more. I will now go and read the detailed privacy policy. But the most important thing is to have the privacy policy. And this is part of the work of the DPO to guide you on how you structure, how you craft your privacy policy in a way that will cover and summarize almost everything that you do.
Well, I think a big story why Chamberlain, why I would say we are having this conversation, or what has spurred this, is what we saw reported in one of the dailies about how MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies are shunning local data centers and are spending scarce forex hosting data centers abroad or patronizing data centers outside of Nigeria. I'm sure this must be of concern to you. Can I even ask, where do you host your own data? Because you
locally.
Locally. Are you sure of that?
We host locally, yes. You know, there's a government policy that all government organizations, all MDAs must host their data locally. But now, in natural sense, we want to sit here and interact with organizations outside Nigeria. We want to buy from Amazon, we want to get services from a lot of organizations outside Nigeria. You know where your data is hosted? No. That was why when we were drafting this law, a lot of multinationals are telling you, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of cost of hosting and so on, it's difficult for them to actually host here. Now what do we do? And we are talking of cloud policy as well, cloud hosting. What do? We now say, okay, the best thing is, in line with government policy, you must hold some data locally. We did data categorization. What category of data must you host locally? And what category of data can you share? Your name, your telephone number, your bank details, we put it online. You don't know where it is. So you are transacting business with other countries. The world is a global village where we all interact from different. The Global Privacy Assembly that I just mentioned, this is just a diversion. We attended the meeting virtually right from the office. You understand? So a lot of things, interaction going on. So it's difficult to say you must do this, but in terms of categorization, that will clearly state this is what you can host locally, this is what you cannot host locally. And we have a lot of data centers that are coming up in Nigeria. Massive investment in terms of security, in terms of standard, in terms of the quality of service they are providing. are top-notch. And in terms of population, the amount of data we generate in Nigeria on a daily basis, they're able to easily host us. But in terms of interaction now, that want to be globally competitive, be part of the global digital economy, don't have a choice. There's some basic data to be hosted out. I'm not, your name, for instance, your telephone number, for instance, your bank detail, you are going online, you put your data. You want to buy from Amazon now, you put all the details there. They're not hosted in Nigeria. But in terms of security data from classified government data, they must be hosted locally. And there's a government policy to that government data must be hosted
so
in
government,
Nigeria, and that's why we have Galaxy Backbone.
There is a government policy that says that data must be hosted locally, but
yes.
What the report is saying that no, MDAs are not really patronizing these local data centers, they're taking it abroad. Have you been able to understand why that is and what the reasons they're given?
I've told you, a lot of them will tell you cost, which is really huge. Cheaper for some of them to host outside that because the cost of infrastructure alone, look at power alone. Most of these data centers, look at them, they run permanently on diesel. You know the cost of diesel now? In fact, they have to provide 3 sources of power, diesel, solar, and from the national grid. It must not be done for a second. And that's the idea globally. Some of them have it, but the cost of running is really high. But I'm not saying you should not obey government policy. That is the government, that is the direction from government, which you must obey. Even in terms of data privacy, when we started, we did a survey, look at the level of security that MDs are putting in place. In terms of compliance to the law, it was just 4%. That was why we went as far as visiting the former LGF's office, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, obtained on the 7th of November, 2022. That was about 8 months after we were set up, 10 months after we were set up. Obtained a circular that all MDAs must comply with the provisions of the law. And within 2 months, level of compliance rose to 9%.
So what percent?
9% within 2 months.
From 4% to 9%.
And by we are doing that, we are carrying on that survey now to know what we have done this year. The most important is enforcement. If you have a law, there's no proper enforcement, there'll be a problem. So if you have a structure that can actually enforce and ensure that people do the right thing, there will be improvement. And even from the Office of Head of Service of the Federation also, on the 16th of November last year, we obtained another guideline, right, all MDs to comply with the provision of this law on data privacy in Nigeria.
How do you protect those local ones that you say they are setting up massively here from AWS, the Googles, and the rest?
The good thing is that they are even collaborating now. I can guarantee you, you can take this to bank, that some multinationals are working with some local hosting companies. They are hosting for government organizations and they are doing it locally because of the quality that is cost. But when you look at volume that they get from Nigeria, from other countries, kind of reduce the price for them.
So do we have policies and laws that ensure that we don't have a monopoly in that sector?
Definitely, definitely. For part of what we've been preaching, like I said, global competitiveness, out of being globally competitive for you not to have monopoly. And it's free for anybody to come in, and if you get the necessary approvals, you get the necessary license, and operate in it.
Ayo.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, Mr. Rashidi, I just want to quickly ask you, the Minister of the Interior, Mr. Olubunmi Ojo, said recently that Nigeria is committed to investing in the harmonization of the country's data. And some of the things that you talked about now raises questions as to whether or not that is going to happen anytime soon, or whether we have developed enough capacity for it. Is data with INEC, data with the banks, as you have said, and then, of course, the Population Commission is also talking about the mother of all data. First of all, what's the plan from where you see it about this harmonization of data from all across the country? And do we have the capacity, the infrastructure to host all of our data locally, just as you're suggesting?
Thank you. I'm aware that the government now has a National Data Harmonization Committee. They are working together to organize all these multiple data sets in different organizations. And I think one thing that is really important about this kind of data is identity. And when you talk of digital economy, the foundation is actually your digital identity. And with what NIPSI is doing already, we are getting there closely. Now, NIPSI was established in 2007. They were able to capture about 39 million Nigerians in their database from 2007 to about 2020 or thereabouts. Then between 2020 and last year, they were able to move, they've crossed that 100 million limit. I think they are doing about 101 or 102 million now. That is almost 49% of our total population of about over 200 million. And the fact that an average Nigerian of that transactional age, that is, you can independently carry on transactions online in terms of wire, jam, banks, international passport, and so many other services that you carry on. You have a NIN, which is your national identity number, just like your social security number in the US or national insurance number in the UK. This is the only thing you need now to obtain a lot of services. So with time, it's like we're in a journey and we have started, we are somewhere now. Definitely we'll get there. If out of over 200 million people, we're able to have 100 million or over 200 million, I'm sure within the next 1 or 2 years, with what NIPSI is doing currently, I'm sure we're going to capture almost everybody. And you bring in population commission banks and all these things. What you need is your names to be able to obtain any service. And what we need to do is to ensure there is levels of authorization of access. For instance, if you need something that is just as simple as your name or telephone number, your home address, you don't need to know the date of birth or any other thing. So it depends on the kind of access you are given. When you have your name, when you input the name in whatever system that you have. So it gradually, in terms of data harmonization, personal data harmonization, digital identity harmonization, we are getting there gradually in Nigeria.
But you haven't confirmed whether or not we have the capacity to do all of the hosting here at home. By the way,
NIPSI has. NIPSI has.
Okay.
Yes, NIPSI has.
Okay. Now, in terms of going forward or looking forward, just as you have mentioned, you talked about cloud hosting the other time. What inhibits Nigeria from doing that? I heard you say that a good number of these Googles, Amazons and all are partnering with Nigerians. But in terms of data protection, and perhaps part of your own assignment, you mentioned cloud hosting the other time. What inhibits Nigeria from getting there? Don't we have the capacity?
You know what I keep saying about Nigeria? We have a lot of crazy ideas, especially from our startup ecosystem. And a lot of solutions coming out from this country that can be comparable to anyone in any part of the world. Nothing stops us from doing whatever we want to do. The only challenge is at the level of ideation, how do you really translate this idea to solutions that can really address specific problems in Nigeria? When you want to do that, how do you fund this idea? When you were able to get the funding, what kind of infrastructure that you have to be able to do this? These are issues that you need to put on the table and discuss very well, and the level of expertise that you need to. So by the time we put all this together, nothing stops Nigeria from being globally competitive in any way. And that is part of the agenda of Mr. President. You look at the 8-point agenda, inclusivity, which is one of the agenda. Then you look at that of the Federal Ministry of Commission and Digital Economy, innovation is key, entrepreneurship is key. These are things that are really coming together. And as I said, we are in a journey. Looking at what we have under Mr. President's 8-point agenda, looking at what we have under the 5 pillars of the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, I'm sure in the next 2 years we'll be coming here to tell you another story.
All right, I know that there are several components. We didn't touch on the security bit. What roles do they have? What's their limits? They also have to comply with this law, security agencies too.
Absolutely.
So it's not that they don't just run roughshod over everybody else. The laws are the laws.
Yeah. Okay,
I guess it's a matter that we'll visit.
You want me to...
Just briefly before we go.
Yeah, now, just about 3 weeks ago, we were at the headquarters of the DSS, and part of what we're trying to do with them is to ensure that all the security apparatus in Nigeria, bring them together, because even for security organizations, you say, yes, you have, because of public interest, at the level of performing your legal functions, you'll be able to have access to personal data, but their guidance, they need to follow, which are trying to develop with them. Who actually has access to this data? What level of staff are you talking about? What type of data are you talking about? How do you even share this data? What kind of encryption method have you put in place to ensure that nobody has any unauthorized access? this data. So these are some of the things that we do. And the law has empowered to issue guidance notes, to issue regulations that will guide whatever we're doing in different sectors. It's going to be on sectoral basis. In judiciary, the kind of parameters used to measure compliance be different from agric, different from health, different from education, different from security operators. So these are things that we're going to be doing as soon as we take up next year. We just started as a commission during this year, so there's a lot of work for us to do. And I'm sure with all of us work together, all of us are partners. And that's why in our pillar, in our 5 pillars, a major one there is partnership and collaboration. And with all of you, all of us working together, we'll really move forward.
All right, we'll look forward to that as well. We do thank you for coming on. Dr. Vincent Olatunji, National Commissioner, CEO, Nigeria Data Protection Commission. Thank you for coming on. All the best. Let's take some mails now. We can. We've got this first one from Martin Jolowe. He says, all judges should have a retreat on how judgments are made in Nigeria. Review the Constitution so as to be on the same page in judgments of the law. The inconsistency has been alarming. INEC must obey and take responsibility of electoral mishaps and be ready to pay the full price if caught wanting in delivering what it promised. Nigeria can rise again, but greed and pride has to be eradicated from the political class in this country.
Well, that was a pretty extensive mail. This is a tweet from Olagunju Oladele. It says, Nigerian politics is like constantly evolving and never short of drama, from elections to social politics and economic decisions, whilst leaders on healthy politics have ripple effect on the masses.
Yeah, so there you go. That is the show today. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Thank you for watching this beautiful Friday morning. We wish you a great weekend. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Have a beautiful day and a wonderful, restful weekend ahead. I'm Ayo Makinde. Bye for now.